So I suppose you mentioned you do sort of a little bit of the SEO, and I am interested to find out about the long-form sales copy. I didn't actually realise that you do some, sounds like a little bit of an AdSense play, or however you choose to monetize that. With that sort of on-page optimization, is that something that you've learned how to do yourself, or is that something that you sort of got a system that you're outsourcing, or how does that work as far as what you're doing for the SEO for those sites?
No, I do that all by myself. I mean, I take some of my knowledge from SEO. I do some market research. For example, my beautiful and wonderful wife has a product called Marketing ESP at marketingesp.com, and it's all about keyword research, not so much for SEO purposes, but for discovering the mindset and finding how people search online. It's not what they're searching for, it's how they're searching for it. You know, in copywriting, there is something that a brilliant copywriter, a friend of mine by the name of David Garfinkel, said, and it really does answer this. He says, you need to know three things, and it applies to SEO as much as it applies to copywriting. He says, you want to know who your prospect is, you want to know what is their problem, and third and most importantly, you need to know how they're talking about it. And that third question is the one that people often ignore. People sometimes they do just a standard keyword research and they say, oh, this keyword is being searched for a gazillion times. And they think that increasing the keyword density on their sales page or whatever the case is will actually work for them. And it's not the case at all. You need to understand how people search. There are keywords that out there that are really highly searched, you know, they're big search volumes, but it means diddly squat, especially when it comes to conversions. So the bottom line is, and I'm referring to my wife's product because essentially she discovers, she does a lot of this in terms of her company. She owns a company called Workaholics for Hire, and she does a lot of this keyword research for a lot of the top gurus. But coming back to what I'm saying is that I have applied, and she teaches a lot of what I have a philosophy about that I apply to all my content sites. I have my own blog, but I have a lot of blogs out there in different niches.
Yeah.
So what I do, and there's a variety of things. Now, SEO copywriting is key to understanding what kind of words and keywords and key phrases, but what I do is I use tools that are at my disposal, and I do this myself. I don't outsource it per se. And I use, first of all, I use a WordPress platform because we've tested. You see, here's the beauty about my particular position compared to a lot of guys out there and gals, is that I married somebody who has done a lot of testing for a lot of internet marketers. So I'm privileged to have this information. But we've tested different platforms from Expression Engine to LiveJournal to Movable Type to Blogger to WordPress, and WordPress is pretty much the one that beat all of them. And what I decided to do is learn all about the plugins that go into WordPress to help simplify my SEO. All-in-one SEO is one of them. I use Robots Meta from Yoast. I use SEO Images, which actually adds an alt tag to all my images. There's another one called SEO Link, which linkifies my content internally to other content when it looks for specific keywords. And it's not JavaScript, it's actually internal, so it's all hard-coded links, but it increases the internal linking structure. There is a few other of these types of plugins that I have found that help my SEO greatly. But essentially, there's the key thing to keep in mind is when I come up with a good title, when I come up with especially the lead sentences and the titles, and we have in the copywriting community a lot of banter and debates about passive voice versus active voice. I found that passive voice, in fact, there's some studies that just came out not too long ago that found out that passive voice actually improved SEO because passive voice, the object is at the beginning of the sentence, so it front loads those keywords at the beginning. I also found that from a copywriting standpoint that people tend to read and capture those faster because the keywords are at the beginning, meaning the active voice, and this is sort of a standard grammatical rule that everybody lives by it, and I agree that active voice is important, but the passive voice sort of flips that around and makes it more keyword driven at the beginning of the sentence. For example, if you have a headline that says, John throws the red ball, that's an active voice. But if you say, and if the keyword and the ones that people actually search for is red ball, and you want to sort of change that around to passive voice, the red ball is being thrown by John. And so what I tend to do is I look at some of my blog posts, some of my the sub-headlines in the post, which are H2, H3 tags, H4 tags. I tend to look at lead sentences, the beginning few words of every paragraph. I tend to do that a lot. I tend to front-load those keywords and use passive voice. And it's also good for copywriting purposes because when people land on the web page, especially if it's a content site, what do? Do they read it? No, they don't. They scan. They skim, scan, and scroll. They go up and down the web page looking for a headline or a subheadline that catches their attention. And if it catches their attention, then they go back and start reading. Well, when you front load those keywords, not only is it good for SEO purposes, but it also captures their attention and stops them in their track and stops them from scanning and gets them to start reading. Plus, the added benefit is some search engines will truncate your description when their search results come up. So you want those keywords to appear at the very beginning as much as possible.